Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dear Podcast. On today's episode, I am going to be talking about drinking alcohol to be more specific, because as a 24-year-old who doesn't really drink anymore, it's an interesting world out there, to put it short. And I would just, again, I'm sharing some of my experiences with drinking, and then also the time when I realized that I don't want to drink anymore, that I wasn't really craving alcohol anymore like that. And then alongside some comments that I get from people when they find out that I don't drink, but more of that towards the end of the episode. I will first give you a bit of a background with my drinking habits and how it has escalated and what part alcohol has played in my life. So to start, I really didn't drink when I was underage. I wasn't the child that would go out and drink a lot when they were underage, just because I was always so scared of getting caught due to my anxiety. So God bless for that. So because of my anxiety, I just didn't drink a lot because I didn't want to get in trouble, basically. When I turned 18, that's when I actually started to drink more. I was just curious to see what it was like to be drunk and what's this alcohol thing all about. So I turned 18 when I was in high school, obviously. I started drinking, I would say, quite heavily, in terms of that whenever I would drink, I would always get very, very drunk. I would just almost binge drink, I would say, because I didn't drink frequently. However, when I did, I went really overboard with it almost every time. And now looking back, I realized that was mainly to numb my emotions, because at the time as well, right before I turned 18, I went through a traumatic experience which developed into PTSD and depression and additional anxiety. And I noticed that every time when I was drunk, I was feeling really good. I wasn't feeling depressed at all. I wasn't having all of those negative, sad thoughts. I was vibing. And again, I would say that maybe like 9 times out of 10, I was the fun drunk gal, but sometimes I would also be the sad gal. I think a lot of people know what I'm talking about and know the kind of, you can either be happy drunk or sad drunk. I really enjoyed the times when I was happy drunk, when I didn't feel any of those negative emotions. I wasn't thinking of all my problems and issues at the time. I was just having a good time, and I really liked that feeling. So I learned that every time when I would drink, I would basically, for example, if me and my friends were to go out, half an hour before leaving, I would just have a lot of strong liquor and then be drunk by the time we got out, and then have a holy jolly time. Now looking back, I realized that I used it as a coping mechanism. Again, I didn't drink often, but when I did, I drank in high amounts. Anyway, so that was in high school. So kind of the last two years of high school, I would use alcohol to cope with my emotions and to suppress them and avoid them in that sense. And then after high school, I graduated high school in 2019. After high school, in 2019 and 2020, I also drank just a few times. Again, it was in high amounts, again due to mental health, which I tried to ignore. And then in 2020, when I went to Greece in September, 2020 September, I was there till 2021 July. And throughout my time in Greece, I did drink, but I didn't drink in such high amounts at once. At least not at all times. I was able to just have a few sips here and there, because again, I was in Greece. It is a new culture. They had different foods and drink. I did drink there, and there were also times when I would get quite drunk. And during one of those drunken times, I had the realization, because when I was in Greece, my depression wasn't that bad. It was mainly just anxiety. I always needed kind of liquor courage to talk to people, to be like more social. So I used, again, alcohol as a coping mechanism for that. So this one party that we had, I was very philosophical for whatever reason. And I came to the realization that the main reason at the time why I was drinking was because I liked who I was when I was drunk. And by that I mean I was more social, more carefree, more out there, more outgoing, especially when it comes to new people. I really like that side of myself. I like that I could be social and hang out and talk to everybody and not have to overthink everything like I usually would. In that moment when I had that realization, I set a goal for myself, which was that I want to be drunk me, but when I'm sober. So I want to have that same confidence, the same outgoingness, the same socialness, but when I'm sober, so without any outside influence. I set that goal that was in 2021, like springtime more or less. Then when I came home in 2021 July, I got quite depressed again. So then I left the country again in September to Greece, and I was there for 1 month. I remember there I was quite depressed, and I really wanted to get some relief from alcohol, but there weren't really any occasions where I would get really drunk just because we had a very, very busy schedule. I was in a volunteering project. I didn't want to feel like bleh the next day, so I never really drank a lot there. And I remember I was quite sad. I was like, oh, nobody's really like into heavy drinking, even though good for those people. Anyways, from there I went to Italy almost straight after. It was also around the like Halloween and like more parties and things. So in Italy I did drink quite a bit more, or quite more frequently. At some point in Italy I felt like I had enough. I had enough of every single liquor, just in general, not only from my 1 month volunteering in Italy, but from the previous years. I felt like I hit the limit for myself. Again, I wasn't doing the greatest either, so I think that also played a role, because sometimes after drinking I would feel really, really in low moods and like depressed and anxious, and I didn't like that. And I think this one time in Italy I just felt it very, very strongly, and I didn't like that feeling. So when I came back home, in again 2021 in November, I was mentally, once again, depression just kind of set in again. And then in December I was put on antidepressants, and I was on antidepressants for the next 6 months, so until 2022 June, and I will make a whole separate episode on antidepressants. During that time I didn't drink at all. First, because I was mentally in such a bad place that I couldn't even fathom doing anything, let alone drink, even though in previous times I used it as a coping mechanism. But at that time in 2022 I just didn't have the energy for it. And also with antidepressants, it is said that alcohol is not advised, just because it may affect how the drugs are responding, or how you're responding to the drugs. I just wanted to get better, so I didn't want to manipulate my well-being or my recovery in any way, shape or form, so I just didn't drink. In late May, early June, I stopped taking my antidepressants. Again, there's a whole other story behind there, but I stopped taking them. They didn't really work. After I stopped taking them, I had really bad withdrawal symptoms, but I was thinking, like, since I stopped taking them, I guess it's okay for me to drink as well, or have drinks again. I had my first drink in 6, 7, 8 months, I think, in June 2022, and I had maybe 2 glasses of wine, if even that. I felt fine. The next day was fine as well. And then about a week later, there was another party. And there I drank a little bit more, a lot more actually. After that, I got really, really depressed. I'm not saying it was just alcohol, but I do feel like the antidepressant withdrawal plus the alcohol was just not a good mix for me. And I was honestly, I think June 2022 was one of the lowest points in my life, even though I've had a few of those, but this one just really sticks out to me because I just felt really, really, really low. From there, again, because I was feeling mentally really bad, I just didn't drink until the end of the year. I was so busy just trying to get myself to feel better. I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to feel better. And I knew drinking definitely wasn't the solution for that. So in 2023, in this past year, I think maybe I drank 2-3 times. And all of those 2 to 3 times when I did drink, it was max 1 or 2 glasses, cups, whatever. I drank very, very little. After what I had gone through mentally, I just felt that I didn't need alcohol anymore to cope. I kind of abused alcohol in that sense. I just wanted it to fix me, basically. That is one of the whys why I don't drink, is because previous years I used it in a very poor manner. Especially when people ask me why I don't drink. It's literally because I don't feel like I want to or need to or like to. I used to have this desire or craving to drink, and I just don't have it anymore. Drinking, it's not really adding to my life. It's rather taken away. For example, because obviously when you drink, the next day, depends on a person, but I'm not feeling my freshest. I don't usually have hangovers, but I just don't feel very on top of the world either. the thing is, I like mornings. I love my mornings. I like my morning routine. I like to do my things. I like to focus on myself, do some yoga, go for a walk, have a nice breakfast. I like my mornings. And or my days in general, I like the days when I have a day off and I just get to do my own things, and I don't want to jeopardize my time to myself with feeling ill and hungover. Like, it's kind of wasting my time in terms of the next day when I just don't feel like doing anything. Even though I would like to prefix this here, just because I don't drink doesn't mean that I don't go out. And now this really sounds like, oh, I can have fun without being drunk. Like, I know it sounds like that, but genuinely, I still go out with my friends every now and then. Obviously not that frequently. I maybe go once every 2-3 months if I feel like it. The thing is, this is fine with me. I don't mind being sober at a party, or when I'm hanging out with my friends, I don't mind being sober. But I feel like sometimes the people with whom I'm hanging out, some of them may feel uncomfortable that I'm sober, and I'm very sensitive, so a lot of times I can sense other people's emotions or feelings, or I pick them up easily. And I've had times when I'm hanging out with people and people are having drinks, and I can sense, after the whole "why aren't you drinking" question has popped up, after we have established that, I can feel people sometimes getting a bit tense or uncomfortable. Their feeling of tension or uncomfortableness is not my responsibility, but it just really makes me wonder, why do they feel a bit uncomfortable? Because I don't feel uncomfortable when I'm hanging out with people who drink. I don't mind hanging out with my tipsy friends. But moving on from there, I said I don't care if people drink, and I don't judge people who do drink, but I feel bad for the people who use alcohol to cope with their emotions, because I just know that it's something deeper there. And also coming from there, as I said, I used to use alcohol to manage my emotions or cope with my emotions, whereas now, for example, when I've had a long work day or long work week for that matter, or if I feel like I'm, mentally tired and whatnot, my first thought is that I can't wait to go home and do some yoga, or I can't wait to go home and either read a book or do a face mask or watch some Netflix. This is such a huge game changer for me that I realized, is that now my coping mechanisms are actually, I don't know if they're all healthy, but I just think they're better, because instead of I face my emotions, I deal with them. Sometimes I journal them out depending, or as I said, I do yoga, because yoga does help me, especially movement in general helps me with managing my emotions and processing my emotions. Sometimes, yes, I do watch Netflix just to kind of turn myself out from the outside world, but at the end of the day, I still deal with my emotions and either feel them out or write them out or talk them out, whatever. In general, with going out, especially if you go out every weekend, again, I've never been that person that goes out every weekend. I think it's just a huge money saver, like, to be completely honest, because if you think about it, people may spend up to 50 to 100 or 200 euros per weekend, which when I think of that money, I'm like, I would love to go to therapy for that money instead, or I would love to go home, watch Netflix, order some food, and just exist. Or I would rather go and have a little weekend getaway trip. I just feel like it's a bad investment. It can be a waste of money if you do it often. I know people are like, oh, you're only young once, etc., etc. Yes, you are. I personally think that there's so many better experiences to put your money towards than going out to the same bars, to the same clubs, with the same people every weekend and just drinking your youth away. And another thing that I want to kind of prefix here is that I'm not saying that I would never ever drink again. I will only drink if I want to. But so far in the past, whatever, year and a half, I haven't really felt the need or want. So that's that. There was this one TikTok that I saw a few months ago, I think, that was about alcohol and how serious alcoholism really is. I would say I had problems with alcohol just because of the way that I used it. Anyways, in this TikTok that I will also share on my Instagram as well, so feel free to go follow me on Instagram or check out my story on Sunday, at least when I'm posting this episode. But it was basically this woman who has had issues with alcoholism and has been in rehab and all of that. And she basically said that, according to her sources, in 2020 when COVID happened, when the lockdown was happening, then the alcohol services were still available. People could still buy alcohol, and I never really thought much of it. But she kind of explained it in the sense that at the time, obviously, the hospitals were filled with people who had COVID and who were seriously ill. And if alcoholics at the time, if they didn't have the access to alcohol, they would also end up in hospitals, because the withdrawal from alcohol is one of the deadliest withdrawals, especially if it's forced. That's basically why alcohol was still available even during lockdown, because otherwise it would have sent the volumes in hospitals just through the roof. And I really reflected on that, because I never really thought of alcohol to that extent, because again, I feel like I never had like a serious issue where I would need to drink every day or very frequently. But it's just crazy to think that alcohol is such a strong substance and something that can have such serious consequences, especially for those who are actually addicted to it. And the fact that this is, as I said, it is one of the deadliest ones to detox from, and it's one of the substances that is the most accessible. It's just crazy to me. And in general, how alcohol literally affects almost every single part of your brain in terms of your neurotransmitters. Because there was also, I don't know if it was in the same video, but if you're used to drinking alcohol in general daily, then if you went to randomly or abruptly detox from it, your brain would literally panic, because your brain has become chemically dependent on alcohol to function normally. And that, again, I'm not sure if it was in that TikTok, but I know that I read it somewhere. When I read it, I realized that I have experienced it myself, especially with hangovers or post-hangovers. This is why I used to experience a lot of anxiety and depression as well. Alcohol is a depressant, so it obviously has impacts on your mood even after you have stopped consuming it the day after. And that's just another reason in my books why I don't want to engage in that, because I don't want to manipulate my own well-being. I haven't talked about alcohol and consuming and alcohol consumption on my Instagram at all, because I felt that I really wanted to actually talk it out in this podcast form, because I do feel like it can be a heavy topic and a very wide topic, and it has a lot to cover, basically. To summarize this here, if you are someone who doesn't drink or who doesn't want to drink, but is often peer pressured by your friends or by their friends, then trust me, I've been there. I would like to applaud myself, because for whatever reason, I've always had very strong self-discipline, which I believe that also, besides anxiety, has stopped me from especially drinking underage. But also when I was after the age of 18, I never really fell into the trap of peer pressure to drink. And I think that has also showed when I have now in the past 2 years, when I have gone out with friends, and quite often, almost all of them are drinking some kind of an alcoholic beverage. But I never feel the pressure to drink as well, just because they are, because I'm my own person, and I don't really need to do what everyone else is doing, especially if it's just something I don't like to or want to do anymore. If you're someone who feels peer pressured by their friends, then I would first you don't have to explain yourself to them, but just try to get your point across that you're not drinking, and that's it. There's no need to try to convince you to drink. But also at the same time, if this is the only thing that you and your friends have common, it's just going out for drinks, and that's not who you are anymore, then it might be a good time to look around yourself and see the people that you're surrounding yourself with. And in general, if this episode, if it spoke to you in any sense, in terms of if you're also someone who maybe drinks to numb their emotions or to suppress their emotions or feelings, then I would advise you to ask the following questions from yourself. And these are the questions that I asked myself I discussed this with one of my friends back when I was in Greece, when I was at a party, quite drunk, and I tried to figure out the reason why I was drinking. These were the questions that the drunk me came up with. If you are someone who feels like you need to drink, then you must get to the bottom of this. Or, I mean, you don't have to, but if it's something that kind of bothers you, if you want to find answers to this need, then I would suggest to ask yourself the next questions. Again, I'm just speaking from personal experience. I don't know if there's any scientific proof behind it, or if there's any actual logic behind this. But my first question would be, why do you feel like you need it? Why do you feel like you need to drink? And be really honest. Either write it out or think it out or talk it out, but try to find your why. What is the reason that you crave for a drink? What is the reason why you feel like you need to drink? What is the reason why you tend to drink? What's behind it? And the whys can be really hard to admit it to yourself, because I don't know if I said it at the beginning, but my why was also that I was insecure, and being drunk just gave me a bit more confidence. And then after you have realized your why or gotten some insight on it, then think, how does it make you feel when you drink? How do you feel when you're drunk or tipsy? Do you feel better about yourself? Do you feel more outgoing? Do you feel more social? Do you feel more confident? Do you feel more free from your thoughts, from your emotions? How do you feel? Think of that feeling that you perhaps enjoy whilst you're drunk, and try to see if this feeling is something that you can also feel without needing to drink, or if you can have this feeling somewhere else. Can you find this feeling somewhere else? Where else have you felt like this? Or have you ever felt the way you do when you're drunk, but when you're not actually drunk? Have you ever felt this way sober? If yes, then try to figure out where, with who, and all of that. And maybe you will figure out some other activities or things that you can do instead of drinking that will help you feel the same way. And the last question is, do you like who you are when you drink or when you're drunk? As I said, I liked the version who I was when I was drunk. Obviously, only when it was the happy, chappy version. I really liked her. She was a lot of fun to be around. And again, I don't regret any of the times when I did drink. And I liked her. I liked who I was when I was drunk. It's weird to talk about myself in third person. I liked who I was when I was drunk. And as I said, that was the version of myself that I was kind of reaching toward, but without the additional anxiety and everything on the side. And I can say now, in all honesty, 3 years later from when I set that goal for myself, that I have reached this drunk me, but in a sober version, so without all the negative drunk side effects. I have finally managed to become the more confident version of myself, the more I didn't really care what people think version of myself, the I can be who I am version of myself. And I am really proud of myself, because at the time I didn't think it was possible, but I'm glad that I proved myself wrong. However, I would also say that I didn't always like who I was when I was drunk, especially when it was the sad drunk, when I was feeling my emotions 10 times more heavily. Like, it was, my feelings and emotions were so amplified. Sometimes I would just cry and cry and cry and cry. And it was therapeutic in the sense that I actually let myself feel the feels and cry it out, but it wasn't a healthy manner. I didn't actually work through my emotions. I just released them, which, again, it's better than nothing. But try to figure out for yourself if you like yourself when you're drunk, or if you don't like yourself when you're drunk, and again, those whys as well. And yeah, I hope that these questions, maybe, again, if you're someone who might struggle with alcohol or the need to drink, maybe these questions right now helped to gain some insight on yourself, or maybe some of the things that I talked about here, maybe it resonated with you, and I would honestly leave this episode here, because I feel like, as I said, it is a heavy topic. It is a lot to cover, and it is a lot to digest as well. I feel like this is a good place to stop here with this little reflection. So after the episode, you can take your time, either do some reflection, think about it, let it sink in. And as always, your feedback, your responses, your experience, your comments are always, always, always welcome on Instagram. My Instagram handle is in the bio, I guess, of this episode. So you're always more than welcome to get in touch with me there. I love talking to people, I love interacting, and I love to get some feedback here and there to see if this resonated with any of you in any way, shape, or form. And maybe this episode, if you feel like it, you can share it with your friends or family or whoever you think might need to hear this as well or want to hear it as well. And yeah, I will leave you here now. I do want to thank you for tuning in for yet another episode of my Dear Podcast, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.